Welcome back to Vikings Game Plan. In deep stretch, it is time for the winning formula, not only for this third preseason game, but a winning formula prognosticating into the 2019 season. Wobby from Vikings.com is here, along with Ron Johnson from Fox 9's Vikings Game Day Live. And when you think of regular season winning formula, frequently you'll think of the quarterback. And the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, Kirk Cousins, very sharp this preseason. 4 for 4 against New Orleans. Ron, in the last game against Seattle, he had a sideline pass to Adam Thielen that was an absolute thing of beauty. Number 8 is poised to pounce.
Yeah, the biggest thing I like is when he was on the run, he didn't look to run. He still was trying to throw the ball. He did complete a ball on the sideline to Thielen in that series. And I think just the ability for him to be able to see the field, he's a lot more comfortable now. You can see his personality coming out. But again, let's go back to the play action. He feels comfortable in this offense. The things they're installing, he likes it. His backups are giving him some keys when he's coming off the field. And like you said, 4 for 4 against New Orleans, and then against Seattle had a pretty decent night. Still has not been tackled. So I think that's kind of the key right now to Kirk Cousins.
So now from Kirk Cousins, you get into backup quarterback conversation. We have this Arizona game. I'd be willing to wager Kirk Cousins probably won't play in the Buffalo game, the final preseason game. You see two prominent names under him, Sean Mannion, who went to the Super Bowl with the LA Rams last year, Kyle Sloter, who has never thrown a preseason interception. He's been terrific in the preseason, and also Jake Browning as QB4. Wobby, a backup quarterback to Kirk Cousins, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Sean Mannion would have to be heavily favored for that, even after really solid 2 performances by Kyle Sloter. I'm not ruling Sloter out of winning that job. I just think Mannion certainly has a beat on it. But I think more importantly, thinking big picture, the Vikings quarterbacks as a whole are all playing really well, and that's a good thing, not just because it's pleasing to our eye,
right,
but because whether it's in practice or in games, it allows other players the opportunity to play well. Receivers are having accurate passes thrown their way. In practice, that's helping the receivers and the defensive backs. So when you have quarterbacks who can run a practice and can perform well in a game, that's going to help the coaches evaluate all the other players. So I think that's sort of a hidden benefit to how well our quarterbacks are playing.
And Ron, there's a lot that goes into being quarterback. I mean, Mike Zimmer talked about it early in the week in his press conference, and without ruling anybody out or anointing anybody, it can't be denied the experience Mannion got working with an LA Rams team as the backup quarterback in the meeting room with Sean McVay and Jared Goff all the way up to the Super Bowl. That's very beneficial.
I mean, honestly, if you look at practice, I was around Peyton Manning and Jim Sorgi. Jim Sorgi knew he wasn't going to be QB1. He loved the QB2 spot. He relished talking to Peyton Manning, helping him out with film, showing him the stuff that was right or wrong when he came off on the sideline, and then in practice, making the same checks and calls that Peyton would make. So seeing a safety come down, checking off, seeing a box with 5 guys, running the ball. I think that's what Kyle Sloter has to mentally show in practice, that he can change protection, he can talk to the center and they're having a conversation, and then getting the receivers lined up when they're in the wrong spot and making sure you are the guy that knows the offense just as much as Kirk Cousins, even though you're not going to play, and I think that's what they want to see from him.
Now from the passing aspect to the running aspect, and Boone, baby, is the way some people phrase it. Mike Boone, second-year undrafted running back from Cincinnati. Well, he's been fantastic this preseason. He had a 64-yard touchdown against New Orleans. He had a 46-yard reception against Seattle. Run after catch was fantastic. Mike Boone, Wobby, his production has been outstanding.
Production has been very good. Explosive, tough between the tackles. He can also pass protect, which is going to be key for a running back on this team. And finally, Mike Zimmer noted this earlier in the week, Mike Boone can help on special teams. When you have Dalvin Cook on the team, he's the workhorse. You have a 3rd-round pick in Alexander Madison, he's next. So if you're Mike Boone and you want to make the team, you got to play on special teams, and he can do that too.
Yeah, I'd say the only thing Abdullah has over him is just the shifty quickness and that speed you can see, the eye test speed. But Boone runs away from guys. He's not getting caught from behind. He's a guy, like Wobby said, in pass protection. He's a little bit bigger than Abdullah. That's what I like from him. If he's coming in as that third back after Dalvin's run, 2 long runs and he's tired, you have to be able to know the scan protection, and you have to be willing to put your head in there and hit a guy coming free on the backside to keep your quarterback healthy. And so Boone, honestly, now I think originally we were like, okay, Abdullah's a guy. Boone's making a case. And I talked to Joker Phillips, who was his coach at Cincinnati. He said, we haven't even seen what Boone can do, and maybe the coaches don't want to show it, but he can play receiver. So he can motion out and be a wide receiver on the far outside and run decent routes versus a linebacker. So I think Boone adds a little bit to this offense.
I want to take it a step farther with Alexander Mattison, but first, I love stories like Mike Boone. He's undrafted. Mattison was taken in the 3rd round, Dalvin Cook in the 2nd round. Amir Abdullah was a high pick several years ago from Nebraska. He ends up here after running with the Detroit Lions. But Wobby, on Alexander Mattison, I think you bring up a really good point as running back number 2. Alexander Mattison has started both of the preseason games, which means he's going against the likes of the first defense for the New Orleans Saints, the first defense for the Seattle Seahawks, without right tackle Brian O'Neill, who hasn't played. And quite honestly, Mattison, I think, has looked pretty good.
I think he has too. And when he started to look really good in practices, and Ron will appreciate this because you've been in practices, was when the pads came on at training camp. That's when Alexander Mattison started to look even better. So I'm not. Look, Mike Boone's production has been good, and now it's been good for two preseasons in a row because he was good last year too. So Mike Boone is legit, not taking anything away from him. But Alexander Mattison is RB2 on this team. He's a 3-down running back right now in the NFL.
Now from the offense to the defense, and this strictly is playing off something Mike Zimmer mentioned earlier in the week in his press conference on Tuesday following the victory over the Seattle Seahawks, talking about one of the best defenses in the NFL and taking what is very good and making it even better. So when it comes to this defense up to the regular season, are there any preseason related concerns right now?
A little bit. The pressure on the quarterback. But Mike Zimmer made a point. You're seeing a lot of guys kind of getting fitted and then watching. If you're watching and looking for the quarterback and not going after him, you're giving him way too much time. I think at one point I counted Russell Wilson had like 5.5 seconds on that corner route he threw. And I think Mackenzie Alexander just got lost in the shuffle because it took so long. And he was thinking maybe the play's over. Maybe that, he's scrambling around. No, he was sitting in the pocket just waiting, and the receiver had all day to get open. So I think that's going to fix a little bit of these coverage issues because during the season, we remember last year, you brought it up with the Lions earlier before we got on the show. 10 sacks. So this is a defense that when they're ready to get after people, they can do it. I just think right now we're getting vanilla rush looks from Zimmer because he doesn't want to show all the things he can do with this team right now.
Yeah, I think if anything, one thing I'll be curious to see is the interior run defense against Atlanta. We've been going against an outside zone rushing offense all of the preseason and practice kind of, against the, going against yourself, the Vikings rushing offense. I think Atlanta's going to run downhill with power. Okay, so we haven't seen much from Shamar and we haven't seen any from Linval. And I don't have any reason to question their ability to play. We know that those are good players, but this is the NFL, so it's hard to just dust it off, show up week 1 and play. So let's see if we can get those guys as much work as possible here in the next 2 weeks before the season starts, because I think Atlanta is coming to run downhill. And then the last thing I would say quickly is cornerback 4 or 5, and if you keep a 6th, who are they? I'm not overly concerned about it because I want the top 3 guys to be on the field every snap. But if someone needs a little bit of a breather, who is cornerback 4? Because that guy will play on Sundays.
And just off that run defense, Linval Joseph began practicing this week. Shamar Stephen has been practicing. Thank you very much for watching Vikings Game Plan. For Wobby and Ron Johnson and all of us here at the Vikings Entertainment Network, I'm Paul Allen. Have a wonderful day.